Bună seara, doamnelor și domnilor! Vă mulțumim că sunteți alături de noi. Ascultați Radio AVFM, Vocea Europei.
Jó estét, hölgyeim és uraim! Köszönjük figyelmüket! Önök az a Voice Former Rádió Európa hangja műsorát hallgatják.
And, good evening ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to A Voice for Men Radio, the voice of Europe. A Voice for Men is the flagship of the men's rights movement. And this show is probably the only one at this point addressing the issues concerning men and boys at a European level. If you ever thought that there's something wrong regarding the state's approach to men and their issues, this is the best place to start. This is the place where feminism gets to be called out on its lies and propaganda, and the state is invited to get out of people's lives. Please consider visiting avoiceformen.com and see how the truth in action sounds like. We are here and we don't plan on leaving anytime soon. And now, Lucian Valsen shall bring us on today's topic.
And we're back. Greetings everyone, this is Lucian Valsen broadcasting from Transylvania. Alongside with me as usual is Jon Gunnarsson broadcasting from Deutschland, and our producer James Huff broadcasting from the United States. Hello there everyone. Hi there, Jon.
Hi there, how are you doing, Lucian?
Well, I'm doing great, and especially great today since we finally had some August-like weather, because up until yesterday we had some more like November-like weather. And, you know, something like 2 degrees in Celsius in the night and 10 degrees in Celsius in the day, and constant raining. That's, I mean, come on, this is Cluj-Napoca, not London, for Christ's sake.
Wow, the weather sounds awful over where you are. Well, here it's been somewhat cool, but it's okay.
Now, today actually resembled more like summer, you know, I mean, there were like 24 degrees in the day, sunny, no rain. That was fine, yeah. Okay, we have a long list of news and a very short time frame to put them all, so let's go straight to the news.
You are listening to AVFM Radio, the voice of Europe. This is the news.
Waiting. Okay, the first one comes from the BBC. Juncker tells EU leaders to pick more female Commission candidates. Oh boy. Jean-Claude Juncker, the head of the European Commission, is urging EU member states to pick more female candidates to serve on his top team. The UK is among a number of governments to have nominated a man for one of the top jobs in the EU's executive body. Mr. Juncker said the Commission without a strong female representation would neither be legitimate nor credible. I would say no matter who serves in it is legitimate or credible. But anyway, but number 10 said Mr. Juncker had not been in touch to raise concerns about the gender of the UK's male candidate. David Cameron surprised many in Westminster last month when he chose Lord Hill, the former leader of the House of Lords, to be the UK's next representative on the European Commission. Number 10 said it hopes he will get one of the top economic jobs, which include competition, trade, and internal market and digital services. Number 10 has insisted Lord Hill, who was an advisor on John Major during negotiations on the Maastricht Treaty, has the right skills and experience to make the UK's influence felt at a time when Mr. Cameron wants to renegotiate the country's membership and hold a referendum on its future in the European Union in 2017. EU leaders will discuss the allocation of jobs at a summit in Brussels this weekend, with the focus expected to be on who will succeed the UK's Baroness Ashton as High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy. Mr. Juncker, the former Luxembourg Prime Minister whose appointment was opposed by Mr. Cameron, said he was unhappy with the gender ratio of the nominations he had received and was appealing to several EU leaders to reconsider them. All the other 27 member states, excluding Luxembourg, get to nominate one candidate each, and they all have to be ratified by the European Parliament before taking office in November. France, Germany, Spain, Greece, and Ireland have also nominated male candidates, with Sweden and Italy amongst only a handful of the EU's 28 members to have selected women. A commission without a significant number of women is, in my view, neither legitimate nor credible, Mr. Juncker told Austria's Der Kurier newspaper. This is why I'm continuing to insist with several heads of state and governments that they send me a female candidate. If there continued to be an imbalance between male and female nominations, he said he would need to redress this through his allocation of jobs. Female commissioners will then certainly have very good chances of landing an important portfolio or of getting one of the most sought-after posts of vice president, acting as my deputies. The BBC political correspondent Carol Walker said Downing Street had made clear Mr. Cameron and Mr. Juncker had not spoken since meeting in July after the latter's candidacy was approved by EU leaders. The UK government, she added, wanted appointments to the Commission to have a balance in terms of gender, geography, small and large countries, old and new EU members. Baroness Ashton was the UK's first female commissioner when she was chosen by Gordon Brown in 2009. She has served as vice president of the Commission as well as High Representative. To put this a bit into perspective, Bruno Waterfield in the Telegraph also adds a bit more to this story than the British Brainwash Corporation tells. He says, last month, Martin Schulz, the Speaker of the EU Assembly, warned that the members of the European Parliament cannot endorse the new Commission unless women are properly represented. I know that one critical point which will influence Parliament's approval is the gender balance, he said. Parliament is very concerned that at present virtually all the potential candidates whose names are circulating are men. Parliament will not accept a gentleman's club. Great! We're all going to be led by the feminist Prime Minister of Luxembourg, a country that has a smaller population than Cluj-Napoca, the city I live in. It's great. I mean, you feel prouder, aren't you, Jon? I mean, I'm sure you're excited as well as I am on this.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have a suggestion for Mr. Juncker. He can just resign and give his post to a woman if he feels so strongly about this.
Yeah, and also he said, well,
by example.
Yes, exactly. And also, well, if there aren't enough women, the Commission won't be credible or legitimate. Dude, the European Commission is not credible or legitimate anywhere on this continent.
Well, it is a true statement. If there aren't enough women, then it won't be legitimate. But, you know, it's also not legitimate if there are enough women, so...
Yeah,
it is at least a true statement. That's
at least partly true. Yeah.
No, it is true. A true statement. It's a misleading statement, but true.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Technically, it is true. But again, as I'm saying, I think if this issue, which I think it's a non-issue, the broader problem is that the European Commission exists. I guess that is a bigger issue. But if this blocks the formation of a new commission and blocks the entire EU apparatus, I'm going to throw a little party. I mean, can please the EU get a little bit of a Belgium effect? You know what the Belgium effect is? Essentially, you know, Belgium stayed without a government for 2 years and something. And that was the only period in the last 20 years when that country was actually greater. So maybe can the EU get a little bit of a Belgium effect for, let's say, 100 years from now? That would be great. I mean, come on, seriously, that would be absolutely fantastic. No European Commission for 100 years, and the European Parliament can continue to exist because they cannot adopt any binding legislation without the Politburo, without the European Commission putting forward proposals. So come on, it would be great. And think about
the old stupid laws would still remain in effect, of course, but at least they wouldn't. I think they're adding new stupid laws.
I mean, think about it. The ban on vacuum cleaners would go because there wouldn't be anyone to ratify it and to put it into place. The ban on smartphones. By the way, the EU is planning to ban some smartphones because they consume too much, as well as hair dryers because they consume too much. Seriously, I'm not joking.
I knew about the vacuums, but
yep,
okay.
Yeah, this just in today. Yeah. They plan on banning some smartphones because they consume too much electrical power. And also, think about it, the European Commission is the executory branch. So if the European Commission doesn't exist, who the fuck is going to enforce the old ones? I mean, sure, they will still be on the books, but what are you going to do? You're going to sanction me? You need the European Commission for that. Come on, it would be a net positive.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's likely.
Of course, it's not going to happen. We're joking. It's not going to happen. But it is particular because it pretty much shows what will be the focus of the next European Commission. I mean, their focus will be on petty bullshit, whilst several countries in Europe are essentially, or several areas of countries of Europe, I should say, are literally starving. You know, there are portions of Greece, portions of southern Italy, portions of western Spain, which are essentially stuck into a pretty much close form of starvation because they're strapped into the EU straitjacket. This is the true story. And what is the European Commission thinking? Oh, we don't have enough women in our staff, and we know that's a terrible oppression. Anyway, let's go to the next one. We need to move fast. The next one is from you, I think, yeah.
Yep, it's from News Talk from Ireland.
No, the Die Welt one.
What? Oh, it's that order. Okay. So it's a German article called "Women Only Earn Half as Much as Men" from Die Welt. And this one is particularly stupid because it actually turns out that in Germany the gender pay gap is actually 51%. And we'll see how they calculate that.
Oh.
Women earn significantly less than men. This insight has again and again been revealed in many comparisons. For instance, the average hourly wage of women is 22% lower than that of their male counterparts, according to the Statistisches Bundesamt. Even that is seen by many women as an outrageous injustice. But in reality, the differences in income are even greater than was hitherto known, as a new study shows. Quote, on average, women only have half the income of men. The analysis of the Deutsches Institut für Wirtschaftsforschung, or DIW, says. In their research, the institute has for the first time prepared the data for wage and income statistics separated by sex. The results are shocking. They are bound to further inflame the debate about income differences, whether it's salaries, pensions, unemployment benefits, or capital gains. Everywhere, women do significantly worse than men. And despite earning less, women have to pay proportionately higher taxes. The numbers of the DIW emphasize the income gap. On average, taking account of all forms of income, women achieve only 49% of the per capita gross income of men. The cause, quote, women more often than men take jobs which are less well paid. DIW researcher Stefan Bach says. Moreover, women often had to pause their careers because of pregnancy and child-rearing. Quote, this is often associated with a less favorable income development, Bach says. Thus, women constitute the majority in the lower income group of up to 25,000 euros. Often, these are jobs that are either low-paid or part-time jobs. But when it comes to the group of average incomes, things change. Quote, for the higher incomes, men dominate, Bach says. Twice as many men as women earn a gross income of 40,000 euros per year. Especially among the top earners in Germany, women are relatively rare. Among all Germans who are fortunate enough to have an income of over 75,000 euros, 80% are men, but only 20% are women. In the highest income group with a yearly income of 500,000 euros, the proportion of women was only 16%. I'm going to skip a few paragraphs here, skip to the end. However, women are treated unequally when it comes to taxation. On the one hand, the average income tax that women pay is lower than that of men. But this difference is not as great as that which might be expected considering the income difference. Especially galling for women. Quote, in the lower and medium income tax groups of up to 30,000 euros, the average tax of wives is more than twice as high as that of husbands with equal income, says the study. This phenomenon is due to the so-called Ehegatten splitting, which may be translated as spousal splitting. Married couples living together are taxed according to the splitting procedure. This procedure operates under the fiction that the total income of the couple is distributed equally between the couple. Splitting is especially lucrative for couples with high income differences, since the one earning more is relieved of much of the tax burden. But in exchange, the partner earning less has to pay higher taxes, and that is usually the woman.
I've got something to say about this.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, first solution, stop getting married. Okay? If you're that worried about the tax scheme, fucking stop getting married. Second solution, stop spitting out these goddamn crotch spawn. And fucking go be a doctor. How hard is that? How fucking hard is that? Go be a doctor. Don't have kids. Don't get married. There you go. You want to correct income inequality, as they want to put it? Do those three things.
I'm with Mean Gene on this one in the chat room. It's rather not a male-female wage gap, but a single mother, single man wage gap. I mean, women who don't have children and are single earn usually the same or more than men. And also, a point made in the article, it's particularly stupid. I mean, it essentially boils down to, well, there are more women in the lower income brackets as it pertains to taxation. Therefore, they proportionally pay more taxes as a gender. That's something like, the greed is, the grass is green, and therefore this bicycle doesn't belong to me. I mean, what's the connection between them? I just can't understand.
No, I mean, there's this spousal splitting. It basically means that if you have a married couple and one of them earns significantly more than the other, you have this option of using this splitting, it's basically to reduce your taxes, but it will, sort of on paper, it's usually the man is the one who earns more. It means that the man has a lower taxes, and the woman has higher taxes, even though the man earns more money. But it's only on paper. It's just for married couples who sort of have more or less a shared income, so it doesn't matter whether it's on paper the man or the woman who pays the taxes. It's the total amount of taxes paid is lower, so people do that.
Yeah, because it's it's essentially a taxation as a group, a family as a group, and we tax the family instead of the individuals in it. Okay, but I have nothing against that. I mean, so what? I mean, if people want to use that, okay, even though I believe it's a weird idea, but anyway. I was referring to a paragraph before that when it says that, well, whilst women generally pay a smaller tax rate because, they essentially earn less, so essentially they pay less money to the state, they proportionally pay more, and essentially that seems to me not just because of this scheme of splitting, but it's also because there are more women in the lower income bracket. So they seem to be paying more, as you said, on paper, but that's not really the issue. At the end of the day, most of the taxes, most of the budget that the government collects through taxation is paid by the men. So what? I mean, I fail to see where is the oppression in this. I mean, if anything, there's a problem for men who pay too much for a government that discriminates against them, but that's a different story.
Basically what they're saying is that the average tax rate of women is higher than that of men, and that's because of this spousal splitting. So, what they're saying is that the total amount of taxes paid by women is lower, but the proportion paid by them, or the tax rate, is apparently higher, according to that study.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, we acknowledge that women contribute less to sustaining the society whilst getting most of the benefits. And what we propose is for them to pay even less than that. But of course, we shouldn't be talking about cutting any kind of female entitlements.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And why not stop the whole family credit bullshit?
Oh, yeah.
And stop that altogether. Stop that altogether. Fucking You have kids, you pay for those kids, stop the child tax credits and crap like that. Stop all that crap and just make everybody pay as an individual.
Yeah, but you see,
we don't care if you're married, we don't care if you're single, everyone's going to pay as an individual.
I wish we
Yeah,
could
but
talk...
but you can't do that because there's then you're against families and you think about the children and so on. That's just not.
It's always
feasible.
about the fucking children, isn't it?
Yep. Okay, let's move to the next one. We're really short on time.
Okay. That was the one I wanted to read before. Yeah, okay. So it's from News Talk. It's called Car Insurer proposes creating pink women-only driving lanes. A UK car insurance company has proposed that the government create pink women-only driving lanes to ensure the safety of female drivers. Pink zones, a concept developed by female-focused car insurance company Sheila's Wheels, would see the creation of pink car lanes in which only female drivers could drive. The proposal came as a result of reports that suggest female drivers were more vulnerable on the road. Figures from the UK Department for Transport in 2012 show men were involved in 14,190 traffic accidents compared to just 70,470 for women. But 53% of women involved in traffic accidents are badly injured, compared to just 38% of men. It also reports that male drivers are 4 times more likely to be convicted of a motoring offence on British roads than women. The pink zones design concept proposes demarcating lanes for women drivers on the existing road network and the creation of women-only flyovers above some of Britain's busiest roads to enhance the quality of life of female drivers. Sheila's Wheels spokesperson Andy Sommer defended the proposal, saying, "Sheila's Wheels is the UK's leading car insurer for women. Sheila's Wheels is serious about creating a safer road network for female drivers, and we believe a discussion about how best to achieve this is long overdue."
That's it. I mean, seriously, I can't comment on this. I mean, come on. This is so stupid. Oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, come on, for fuck's sake. Women are already safer on the roads everywhere in Europe because they drive less. So they already have an overall risk of accidents and being injured on the roads than men. They just do. Come on, seriously? Pink lanes? We should join forces with Indonesia. I mean, someone in the chat room says, Drunk Orc says, in Indonesia they have pink parking spots for women, which I don't find it hard to believe, given that they also have menstrual leave. So,
there's actually a special parking spots for women in Germany too, but they're not pink.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing. And I guess they're slightly wider or something, right?
No, I don't think so. They're just sort of closer to the entrance zone and more well lit, because the thinking is that women will get raped or something if they park farther away.
I see. Because I remember seeing something, I don't know if it was in the UK or France, but I remember seeing a proposal to make some women's parking spaces to be slightly wider, because women have more difficulty in parking properly. And whilst I believe the proposal is moronic, at least it has a point. Women generally do have a bigger problem parking properly. At least that's true. I mean, it's stupidity, but based on something that is at least in part real. Of course, not all women have problems in parking, but they generally do have more problems than male drivers. But then again, special lanes on the highways and the quality of life of female, come on. This is, no. Let's move to the next one.
It doesn't deserve serious commentary.
Yeah, let's move to the next one.
Let's do that.
So it's also from you, Judge.
Oh, yeah.
The local, yeah.
Judge shelves Malaga fairground rape case from the local. A judge in Malaga has dropped a case against 5 young men arrested over an alleged rape during the city's annual fair on Sunday night. with lawyers for the youth now saying they will take legal action against the supposed victim. The judge took the decision to shelve the case after hearing the suspect's version of events and seeing mobile phone footage of the event shot by one of the young men. Local daily La Opinión de Málaga reported on Wednesday. The lawyer working for the 5 youth, 2 of who were just 17, said he would now take action against the woman for allegedly making a false accusation of rape. The men were initially arrested after local police on Sunday morning found a young woman crying at the Malaga fairground. She claimed to have been raped, but suspects have since told Spanish television stations the sex was consensual. After the incident, Francisco de la Torre, mayor of the southern Spanish city, was criticized for playing down the importance of the alleged crime by stating, "There are more than 1,000 rapes every year in Spain," and "Let's not give the impression that Malaga is unsafe." What a rape apologist. The incident also comes during a week in which the Spanish government has come under fire for its anti-rape guidelines, which included advice such as telling women to close their curtains to thwart peeping toms. It's a form of scaremongering. It puts the blame on women and it stops them from taking responsibility, tweeted Socialist Party Equality spokeswoman Carmen Monton about the ruling party's anti-rape advice sheet.
Yeah. One more aspect that is not mentioned by this article, it's mentioned more in diario.es. Essentially, even the attorney of the girl agreed that the accusation is bollocks and essentially said, "Okay, Judge, Your Honor, we have nothing more to add," upon seeing the clip. I mean, everyone knows that this is utter bullshit now, but before the clip was released, the poor little boys suffered a huge media lynch in the area. And
that's how it always goes.
Yeah, and I'm with the mayor on this one. I mean, the mayor was correct in saying, look, there are roughly 1,000 rapes every year in Spain, in a population of 60 million, mind you, or 50. What is 50 million? Something like that is Spain. So let's not give the impression that this is, a huge problem of rape in Malaga. Well, it's not, even if this case is true, which, by the way, it isn't. So, yeah, what a rape apologist. But it goes even worse in the same area. The RaquiataPost.com. This is in Valladolid, also in Spain. Spanish mayor slammed for over bra stripping threats in lifts. That is, elevators. A Spanish mayor apologized on Friday after an outcry over his comments that lone women in lifts could rip off their brats and skirts and make false accusations of assault, which is, by the way, true. "I have qualms about getting into an elevator," the conservative mayor of Valladolid in central Spain, Francisco Javier León de las Rivas, told the Spanish radio on Thursday. "Imagine you get into an elevator and there is a girl who is out to get you. She enters with you, tears off her bra and skirt, and flees shouting that you have tried to assault her," he said. "Beware of this kind of thing." Faced with a public backlash, the mayor offered an apology. "I'm sorry that statements taken out of context have had such repercussions," he told Spanish journalists on Friday. "To anyone who was offended, I have no problem offering an apology." Women's groups and politicians had reacted with outrage on the mayor's comments. "We should not and will not tolerate the mayor seeking publicly at the price of women's pain," said an association for victims of sexual assault and abuse. Adava Simt. They always have long names in their NGOs, just like, anyway. "We demand the immediate resignation of the mayor of Valladolid," it said in a statement. Right. "The opposition Socialist Party's Secretary for Equality, Carmen Monton," here she is, accused the mayor of trivializing rape and feeding the specter of false rape allegations. "Only 0.01% of complaints of violence against women were false," she said. The rest of the article talks about the campaign that you also mentioned in the article you read, Jon. Now, first of all, this is utter bullshit. The Spanish government, under the Socialist Party's government, used to pay, and in some areas it still pays, it literally pays women to make false rape allegations and false interpartner violence allegation. This is the truth. So here comes the same Socialist Party to tell me, oh, but only 0.01% of them are false. Come on. Come on. Come on, I mean, people usually do have a limit when they lie.
I mean, the 2% number is the one I've heard most frequently, but this is already unreasonably low and completely unbelievable, but 0.01%, I mean, come on.
There are judges in Spain who are still in function today who talk about a 40-45% rate, especially in case of domestic violence, but also in cases of sexual abuse. And they all point to the same problem. Look, we as taxpayers, we pay these women to lie. So of course a proportion of them will take this because you provide an incentive. Come on, 0.01%. This individual, Carmen Montono, really has a problem. And again, I agree with the mayor of Valladolid. Be aware of false rape allegation is a good advice to provide to your citizens. Especially in a country where, again, the state pays women to lie. And
especially with sort of a higher profile person like a mayor.
Yeah.
Because there really are people who have an incentive to go after you. Maybe disagree with you politically and then just try to manufacture a scandal there.
Yes. Remember Dominique Strauss-Kahn? I mean, come on. I don't like Dominique Strauss-Kahn at all, but, I mean, come on, to say that Dominique Strauss-Kahn assaulted and beaten and raped a woman that is 2 times taller than him and significantly younger and also with a past in sports, so essentially far stronger than him. Come on, come on. So again, it happened to Dominique Strauss-Kahn, the head of the IMF, for fuck's sake. So the mayor of Valladolid, come on, that's an easy target.
Yeah,
if you really want to do that.
And of course, these groups, these feminist groups, instantly jump on it and say that he's trivializing rape when he has done no such thing.
Yes.
Saying that false accusations of rape occur does not say that rape is not a bad thing or that rape doesn't occur. 2 completely different things.
Yeah. Yeah, another J says great in the chat room. At 0.01% rated, that means for every fake report would mean 10,000 real crimes. Come on. And yeah, I mean, 10,000 real crimes, so that would essentially mean that one false allegation happens once in every 10 years in Spain. Because, you know, there is only 1,000 cases of rape reported in Spain yearly. So in this case,
but you forget that 100% of cases at least go unreported.
Oh,
so
yeah, fair enough. But I actually did the math on that on my article. EU should stop cooking the numbers on the front side, and I actually used Spain as an example. And even if I use that kind of rhetoric, that 90% of them go unreported or whatever, it still doesn't get anywhere even remotely close to the numbers put forth by the feminist organizations. Anyway, going to the next one. Oh boy, no, this is okay. Dagbladet.no. Vi har en kvinnekrise och slik skall jag lösa den. We have a woman crisis, and I shall solve it. That's right, White Knight, go ahead. Yesterday, the police director Odd Reidar Humlegård read in Dagbladet that the proportion of female police commissioners in Norway, contrary to the objective, has more than halved in a few years. Only 4 of the 27 police commissioners in Norway are women. How could it happen? This individual, Odd Reidar Humlegård, says, "Well, it bothers me. We should have reached to a point where we had more female leaders today. I think it is an emergency right now, and we have failed in recruiting female leadership in our organization. And we must recognize that it is not only the female police commissioners that is too low. There is also too few women leaders at all levels and in all work areas in the police investigation, strategical operation, and so on and so forth. Nearly 40% of police students are women, yet the proportion of women in management position does not reflect that. Do you have a plan? And if you do, what is it about? Says the reporter. Well, I do have a plan, and the plan is already implemented. One of the first things I did as a police officer was to hire a human resources director, and the directorate has started to centralize and professionalize the management and recruitment. Essentially, I did nothing. Previously, each district was responsible for identifying the talent. We have wasted a lot of money and time on that kind of process, which in my opinion was bad. And we have now developed and implemented a management training and recruitment programs for a coordinated view of the agencies. It will bear fruit, but it will take some time, says Humlegård. But why struggle with the police recruitment of women, asks the reporter. Well, there are several reasons, he says. I have in several cases been personally involved to get women leaders to stand in to stand for challenging position or take even greater leadership in and responsibilities in the police. Sometimes I succeeded, sometimes not. A female manager stated that she turned down a top job because of the uncertainty that currently characterizes the police. We are in the midst of a profound structural change throughout the Norwegian police. This uncertainty means that more women and also men and leaders do not they set their manager career on hold until they know how the future structure and the organizations and the organization will be, I think, yeah. It is a problem for us, and one reason why it will take time to bring up the percentage of female police leader up. And I have also been told that an intensive police chief job was not compatible with the family situation, says Humlegård. Essentially, except for the last sentence, he didn't answer the question, if you notice. Do you think the negative attitude of the agency for female police leaders can be part of the problem? Says, no, not really. We have come a long way. I think part of the challenge is the same as in society at large. We must improve our ability to inspire proficient women to take risks and apply for a demanding job, for a demanding senior job, says police director. The prolific crime writer and former top police Hanne Kristin Rodde wrote recently in an article in Police Forum that the management of the police that needs reform, it is the management of the police that needs reforming and not the police. What is your comment on that? Well, I have not read that chronicle. How convenient. How convenient. He didn't get the chance to read an article that essentially rebuts his bullshit. So now let's focus on more women's in the police.
Yeah.
I mean, how convenient. You have to admit it's very, very convenient. Now, in all seriousness, there is not a problem with the lack of female in the police, in the Norwegian police. I mean, women are free to apply to get in there, and if they don't, that means they don't want to be there, and that's it. I mean, come on. There is no such thing as a policy that forbids women from certain jobs or things of that nature. Those things are long gone in Norway. So
it's structural discrimination.
Yeah, it's all about the structural, and when we say structural, that means we cannot prove it, and we don't need to prove it because potato or something. Okay, we're actually going to get in time to all of them. Going to the next one and the last one. Oh, this is even more stupid. Madame Le Figaro.fr. Oh, come on, I don't want to read this. Les féministes dénoncent la dilution du ministère de droits de femmes. The feminists denounce the dilution of the Women's Rights Ministry. Merged with the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health, the Ministry of Women's Rights takes a new face in the government Vols 2. That is, the same Prime Minister now has a different cabinet, so it's government Vols 2. For Feminist Association, this is primarily a step backwards in the fight for equality. Led by Nadja Vallaud-Belkacem, our old friend, the Ministry of Women's Rights merged with the City, Youth and Sports in the first Vols government, and it is now attached to the Social Affairs and Health. The announcement of this first merger had already thrilled feminist activists since the struggle for equality seemed forgotten amongst several other fronts. But the image of Nadja Vallaud-Belkacem, figurehead of the struggle in the government of Jean-Marc Ayrault, was used as a guarantee. Today, a new pitch in the Ministry of Women's Rights and its absorption by the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health led Marisol Touraine, previously Minister of Social Affairs under the government Vols 1, to take position. As if the many advocates in this field during the as many of the other advocates in this field during the last few years, as a figure in advancing some of the issues, such as the law on sexual harassment, eliminating the concept of distress to resort when it comes to resorting to abortion, and law on gender equality. I think it's not enough what we have been done, what we did so far. The combination of their feminism also denounced this approach. It is limiting the issue of women's rights to health and social issues, and sorry, come on. Oh yes, and of course people will eventually ask, where is the Ministry for Women's Rights? The only good thing about this is the arrival of Pascal Bostoir into the structure as the Secretary of State for Women's Rights with Marisol Touraine. This representative of the left wing of the Socialist Party has held several positions within the party. She was first teacher in Seine-Saint-Denis, and she entered into politics in 1998. Deputy Mayor of Paris, and she was also responsible for integration of Third Country until 2012, then member of the 1st District of the Somme, and she was also close to the foreign minister who pleaded for the non-constitutional treaty in 2005. Well, at least she did one thing right. The appointment of a Secretary of State is, however, not enough to calm the activists. On the contrary, in the feminist opinion, this nomination even appears as an even further regression. Demote this department to the rank of Secretary of State is an extremely negative and restrictive political signal. First, it is considered that women's rights are subordinate, whilst making up more than 50% of the population, and there are still strong and still discrimination exists today, and it must be fought. So essentially, they whine that, the Ministry for Women's Rights is not equal to the Ministry of Defense, for instance, or, things that are slightly more important, or the Ministry of the Economy, which is, I guess, should be the most important ministry today in France, given the situation.
Yeah, and
seriously?
And obviously, the Ministry for Women's Rights is much less important than the Ministry for Men's Rights. Oh wait.
Oh right.
No, we don't have one of those, but we have one for women. So therefore, this one being weak is inequality.
Yep.
And making that one stronger is more equality. Got it. So equality is just whatever helps women.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
Okay. I understand it now.
Yeah, indeed. No, in all seriousness, there is no regressive politics. In fact, the biggest progressive policy that France could adopt would be to just fire Najat Vallaud-Belkacem and all the other asshats that pretend to be politicians doing something important for France. It's what I would call progress. Seriously.
But I mean, what would you expect from someone who is from the left-wing part of the Socialist Party?
Yeah, fair enough. At least I appreciate they're honest. They openly say, I am of the left, which is, at least we know what to expect. Which is not always the case in other places. In the UK, some of the alt-right communists, they never admit to their position. They never commit. They never say, look, I am a communist and I believe this. They never say that. And I hate it when they do that. Anyway, let's put all these news, and especially the last one, on a progressive continuum with some French progressive metal. And listen to Aging Beauty, another song from the album L'Ultima Hora, The Last Hour, launched in 2004. So Aging Beauty, Steps. And we're back. We've listened to Aiching Beauty's Steps, great progressive heavy metal band from France. We're into the second part of the show. Unfortunately, Gil Ronan didn't show up in time, or maybe there's a technical problem. We're trying to solve it. But fortunately, we have here the head of AVFM Hebrew, Yehonatan Roth. Welcome to the Voice of Europe, Yehonatan.
Hey, thanks. Nice to be here.
How's it going?
All right. Pretty tired. There's been a lot of activity in the past week.
Oh, I know the feeling. Okay, let's cut straight to the chase. Tell us a bit about yourself to the extent that you want and can, and also tell us how did you become interested in the non-feminist message or in men's rights.
Well, I'm 24 years old. I just came back from abroad, and I started to get interested from it by going to Reddit, and there was a video section, and there was the Karen Strom video, and I thought, hey, I never thought about it like that, feminism and the disposable male, and watched the video, and then I started researching a little bit, started to read a little bit, asking questions. I had a problem finding a lot of people from Israel, but then I found Gil Ronan from YouTube, and then went to Facebook, and kept on from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. And how did you get the idea to start AVFM Hebrew?
I think that was inspired from you, if I remember correctly.
Really? Okay. Then most of the audience now and who will be listening this in the podcast format has little to no idea as to how things are in Israel at this point. So tell us a bit more about the main issues that are faced by men in Israel. For instance, I'm very, very interested, and that's why I was really excited to have Gil in here, and hopefully we will have him by the end of this show. I'm very, very interested in how the rabbinical court system works. But anyway, so go ahead. How are things in there as it pertains to the subjects that we're interested in?
Well, right now, the men's movement, the biggest one is Aleph Zehaba, which is, if you want to translate directly, it's A is father. And it started from the Rothschild, there was a demonstration in Rothschild Street a few years ago, and there were all kinds of, social protests that influenced Israel at the time, and one of them started with the men's rights movement. Actually, I tried to find information about this. It turns out it was actually a female Knesset member, which is our parliament. Mm-hmm. And, how it pertains to justice system and the rabbinical court system is tied pretty closely to the normal court system, which doesn't really allow, if you marry, you have to marry, and you don't have citizen marriage in Israel. And basically it all goes through them and all the money, and basically you're fucked the second you get married. You need to write a ketubah, which is kind of an arrangement before the marriage. And most people don't even know what it says, because it says something in Aramaic, and nobody knows Aramaic other than really religious people. So basically after you get divorced, the main men's rights movements here in Israel are about alimony and child support after you get divorced. All the other subjects are pretty not as big in Israel, to be honest. And things are changing because the new judges, the younger judges, are starting to see that there is discrimination and are working towards doing different things, basically judging differently. The laws didn't change, it's just how the judges interpret it. And some judges are simply malicious. So although the law doesn't show directly to discriminate between men and women, they do so actively, simply because they don't like men.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I find this very weird that the arrangement is written in a language that essentially nobody knows. I mean, really? It just doesn't make sense to me, to be honest.
Well, even if you haven't even married, after 3 months of living with a woman, you're technically known in public, and then all the kids that come from that relationship are bound by alimony. Even if you've never married the woman, even if you haven't signed any contract, and basically doing any sort of contract such as, prenup, it doesn't matter, because most people that get married or get into this situation are too young to have money to begin with. It only helps you if you have if you're rich before you get into the marriage or have children. And basically, I think even in Jewish religious law, after a certain time that you live with a woman, you're considered married, although not technically, but under religious law.
That doesn't sound great as well at all. Now, I'm reading from a link which I think I have it from you, from csfisrael.org, and I want to bring two of these. It's a long list of issues that this group seems to have identified as it pertains to how people in general and men in particular are being discriminated in some way, shape, or form. And it says here, point number 37, there is no publication of the laws in Israel. The government refuses to publish its laws and regulations in one place for free. The citizens have no way to know what the laws are. The government licenses private companies to sell costly subscriptions to lawyers, but the public must consult a lawyer. Is that true? And if yes, I mean, really? And how do I find out whether, I don't know, let's say peeing in public is legal or not? What is the procedure to find out that? Or anything else, for that matter?
I was trying to get into that subject as well, and I asked a lawyer friend of mine. And there are places where you can find laws, actually, on lawyer-student kind of sites. But it's not really that easy to sift through, and it's not user-friendly, but as far as I know, I don't think there's some sort of withholding of information, but there is the Freedom of Information Act in Israel. When you see in every governmental site, you can ask for these files, but then you need to know about their existence beforehand. So it's kind of this funny little loop that you have there. Basically, I guess the best way, if you want to know if you can't do something, go ahead and do it, I guess. But no, we don't really have any sort of official site that gives you everything. Even the official Ministry of Justice site, when you try to find laws, it's very basic and you can't find anything. I was trying to do that for quite a long time. Yeah.
This sounds insane to me. Do you have any idea of why they're doing this? I mean, isn't the point of law sort of to tell people what they can and cannot do? But if people don't know what the law is, how is that supposed to work?
I agree, technically, because you have that law which says not knowing about the law doesn't absolve you of the law, then technically they don't have to tell you anything. All they have to do is say, if you don't know the law, it doesn't absolve you, and then they don't need to do anything anymore. It's like a country of people that are filled with people that used to be very, the whole point of Jewish religion is always trying to find another way of doing something in a new way. So basically it's a country filled with people like that. So all the people in the government are the most sophisticated, tricky, scheming people. So if they really don't want you to, if they really don't want you to know something, you're not going to know it.
I agree with the concept that not knowing the law doesn't absolve you of the consequences for breaking it. However, that also implies that I have reasonable ways to know what the law is. I mean, if you're going to hold me accountable for not knowing the law, at the very least, you should at least let me know what the law is. And if I refuse to read it, then, of course, you can hold me accountable for it. But given that most of the law, or all of the law, as far as I understand it from this link, although you said there are loops, and I expect it to be, because no government is efficient. I mean, the point is, if you're not allowing me to know what the law is, it's just insane then to be held accountable for not knowing it. I mean, come on.
Definitely.
It's just like I would. I never mentioned any rules for this interview, and then kick you out from the interview because you have spoken, even though I haven't said the rule that is that you don't speak. I don't know. I'm trying to find a way to illustrate it.
Or maybe the rule is you can speak, but you're not allowed to use the letter E.
Something like that. Yeah. Okay, you said that although the laws in and of themselves, they don't specifically say that men and women should be discriminated against. Now I'm going to probe on this. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but I'm going to ask anyway. From the same link, it says here, point number 2, Family laws in Israel are laced with statutory discrimination against men, including automatic custody to women and full exemption to women from participation in child support. The Section 25 of Israel's Legal Capacity and Guardianship Law of 1962 says that, and also even in the odd case where a man wins the custody, the non-custodian wife is explicitly de facto exempt from paying child support. How much truth is in that? I mean,
that is very accurate, yeah. That is absolutely accurate.
And given if this is accurate, then I guess my next question would be, I wanted to ask this question to Gil, but since he's not here, I'm going to ask you, maybe you did study a little bit. From what I understand, there is a relatively strong, or maybe I should say a very strong, feminist lobby that, just like anywhere else in Europe or North America, mostly resides in the academia, and they call themselves gender science, which is essentially feminist studies that we've been accustomed to here in Europe. What is their struggle? I mean, if the law is like this, what's their point in existing in there? I don't know, just asking.
Well, there is discrimination against women as well in the religious section, in terms, if I remember correctly, if a woman has sex before marriage or something like that, or get divorced, she basically gets blacklisted and can't get married again. And for a religious person, it's really, really difficult to live a life like that. Basically, the whole point of her existence is getting married to a man and raising a family. So one mistake and it's done. Or, for example, if I remember correctly, there's this law, religious law, that if you have sex with your non-marital partner, you cheat, and you have this child, then that child is not recognized, and you can't get alimony for him, and you can't have anything regarding that, and then she's also blacklisted. So in terms of just normal everyday life, that something's going to happen, religious law doesn't really like what happens, doesn't really support women in theory, but in practice, it's as discriminatory as all the rest of the justice system. But the laws, if you ask a lawyer, most of them won't tell you that it's actually discriminatory.
Now, to be honest with you, I would feel that it is extremely fair that if you cheat and have children out of that relationship, that you won't get alimony. Quite frankly, I think that is fair, and I'm not religious at all. But also, you said, oh, the individual woman gets blacklisted. But how is that coordinated with the fact that you just said it? If you live for more than 3 months with a woman, you're de facto married. So, I mean, couldn't a blacklist woman just live for 3 months with another man and bypass that legislation? I'm asking these questions. Maybe they seem silly to you, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around the idea.
They don't seem silly. I actually don't know what the answer is, but I do know that maybe there's no recognition and therefore there's no help from the justice system. Like sometimes if the court doesn't recognize a woman to be allowed to leave her husband, get divorced, then she can stay still married and basically be stuck in that situation and not have enough rights in that regard. It also sometimes happens on the other way around, although I'm a little less familiar with that, when a man is not allowed to be divorced from his wife. So religious courts aren't really a plus in Israel. Some people want to keep them, some people don't. Some people want to separate them completely. Yeah, when you said something about, well, when she cheats, she shouldn't get alimony from the husband, sure. But what about the guy she cheated with?
Well, again, even with the guy she cheated with, I mean, it's an option for a woman to get pregnant or not. It really is a choice today. It's not like it happened. No, it didn't happen. You chose to be married, to get pregnant. So you shouldn't be getting alimony from him, because it was your choice, your responsibility, madam.
I agree, but it's also the choice of the man she cheated with. He knew that he was having sex with this woman. And
but he knew he consented to having sex, not consented to become a parent.
I agree, but mistakes can happen. But I heard not long ago that sometimes the anti-pregnancy pills that women take can cause major liver damage, and some women just can't.
if that were really true, and if that were, and again, that's not the only contraceptive method, but if that were really true, to a significant, not large, just a significant scale, the use of them would drop in an instant everywhere on the planet. And since that's not happening, it is fair to say that that kind of concern is, how do I put it, overbloated?
And there is one other solution. I mean, it's the most obvious one out there.
Yeah, permanent sterilization, I guess.
No, stop fucking.
Ah.
And how hard is that?
I agree with you, but I still think that it's both the woman and the man's responsibility, and not just the woman's responsibility.
Well, considering the fact
people decided to have sex, then it's both of their responsibility. On the other hand, if she fooled him in some way, that's sperm theft. That's different. But if both of them knew what was happening and both of them knew what they're going into, they both have the responsibility. The husband, on the other hand, is absolved. Wait 1 second. I need to open the door.
Oh, great. Interesting. Incredibly interesting. I hope Jonathan comes back in less than 30 seconds, otherwise I'm gonna get mad.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm reading from the same link from CCF Israel. It says here that the family courts, by law, may dispense with evidence. Witnesses, such as social workers, are not cross-examined. Requests by men to summon witnesses are denied, and in some cases, judgments are rendered without trials at all. In pendente light, what's that pendente light applications? I have no idea. For interim measures, evidence is not required at all, and judges render decision based on their momentary gut reactions. First of all, what is pendente light applications? And second, how pervasive is this practice?
Well, I don't know specifically the term that you used, but I do know that sometimes the, how do you say, I don't remember how to say this in English, but the party that's supposed to prosecute, for example, in cases of child abuse, when it's a woman doing it, sometimes they neglect certain amount of evidence and give a lot of excuses like her life was difficult, stuff like that. And when the same case comes across when a man abused the child, that doesn't happen. They get a lot less, there's a lot less of a chance of conviction when it's a woman. Just the institute itself is biased.
Yeah, that sounds really familiar with what we're having here, doesn't it?
Yep.
Now, the term is used in here in in the link ccfisrael.org, point number 4. I'm curious because the way it is framed here, pendente light applications, pretty much sounds like a request for a protective order or something like that. And I was curious what it really means, because if it means a protective order, I was interested to the level of its enforcement, essentially. I mean, there is such thing as a protective order. For instance, you can go in Israel to the court and say, "I'm afraid of my husband," and then essentially have him taken out of his house and things of that nature.
You don't need even to go to the court. You just tell that to the police, and they just arrest you without any problem. And sometimes it just happens again and again and again. And I hear men coming up and telling me, "Oh, the police know me for so long, and they know that she says false accusations. So they say, oh, just come to the police station. We'll see you for a second, then say goodbye. We won't even question you." I mean, if you know you're not going to does this, ridiculous. You're not familiar with the guy.
Well, I guess at the very least, the police is far more understanding in there than it is in other countries. I don't know. France. I'm looking at you. Sweden. I'm looking at you. But on the other hand, this can also be quite dangerous. I mean, if you newly moved into the neighborhood, you're fucked.
Yeah, and it's not in all cases. Just sometimes when it's so pervasive, yeah, that happens. And if you want, I can try to call Gil.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Until Jonathan fixes that. Any comments so far, Yon? Because I'm amazed. I'm really speechless on some of the stuff.
It does sound quite amazing, the whole legal system there.
Amazing is pretty much like an understatement. And I can't say I'm really surprised. I mean, this is the kind of thing that happens when there is a way, when there is not a way, but an attempt or something like that to somehow marry, and I'm using the word marry quite loosely, to marry religious law with civil law in a way that is not consistent either with a theocracy or with a secular state. It's something in between that makes no fucking sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and in that case, apparently feminism really wins.
Oh.
Because they can take the sort of pro-female religious stuff and remove the pro-male stuff from this, and do the same with the civil law, and you get sort of super feminist law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty much like what Ali told us when he was on the show with how the so-called Islamic feminists work. You know, essentially when a piece of legislation favors women, they're all very pious and Islamic and Allahu Akbar. And when a piece of legislation doesn't advantage women, they're all strong, independent feminists, burning bra feminists and things of that nature. Yeah, I wouldn't even put it that. I mean, in Iran, is definitely the feminists are winning in that combination. But in Israel and in some other religious countries, such as Poland, for instance, which also has a very improper separation of church and state, in these kinds of places, it's the gynocentrists in general who are winning.
Yeah, and it need not really be feminist necessarily. It's just feminists are sort of usually the most pervasive group doing this, but gynocentrism is also very prevalent among sort of more right-wing or traditional religious people.
Okay, I got the good news. Gil Ronan is online. James, can you please drag him into the conversation? Come on. Good afternoon, Mr. Ronan. Are you there?
I'm here. Sorry about that. I'm here.
Not a problem. Welcome to the Voice of Europe.
Thank you.
Yeah, we placed a little description of you on on this show, but to the audience in here, please tell us a few more words about yourself.
Well, I am a journalist by trade, and I'm an activist for about 13 years now in Israel. Mm-hmm. And I think I could be considered a leading pioneer in the field here in Israel of fighting for men's rights and for strengthening the family unit against the constant attack that it's been under for quite several decades now. We got I call it genderism. I prefer to use the word genderism as opposed to feminism. I see the genderists as the people who create. It's like the neo-Marxist stream that manufactures this propaganda, which is called feminism. It's a way of sort of distancing myself from the word feminism, which maybe creates a certain positive connotations because we've heard it for so many years, ever since we were young or before, ever since we were born, and it already evokes a certain image. So I prefer to call these people genderists, because what they do is they create gender warfare, and feminism makes it sound obviously as if they're fighting for women's rights when they're not. Here in Israel, we have a very big problem. I don't know. I can't say if it's worse than other places or better. I guess in some ways it's worse, and in some ways it's better. But Israel basically has it has religious courts that operate along with the civil courts, and ever since there was always a certain amount of tension between these two, and a certain division of labor, so to speak. But then in '95, we had a very liberal Supreme Court Supreme Court president who created the family courts, and these courts do what family courts do all over the world. They basically separate fathers from their children, children from their dads, and on top of all that, we have a very sophisticated system of incentives for women to divorce. We have a lot of propaganda going on. I don't know. I can't compare it to other countries, but we have these two holidays, you could call them, for the genderist movement. One is March 8th, which is International Women's Day, which is a Soviet holiday that's been rehashed here in Israel, and all
over the world, yes,
and all over the world, right? But I know that when I talk to people in America, a lot of them are not really even aware of this day. Here in Israel, it's very prominent. We don't really have Mother's Day anymore. They killed Mother's Day because they figure that sends the wrong message of motherhood and family. And so they killed it softly by renaming it Family Day, and it's a day when they talk about gay marriage, etc., and all these alternative families. And then they reinstituted this March 8th. Now, the interesting thing here in Israel, we have a lot of immigrants from the former Soviet Union, and they are very familiar with Women's Day, except in the Soviet Union itself, initially after the 1917 revolution, International Women's Day was a very feminist holiday. It had all the messages of anti-family. It carried the anti-family message to the women of the Soviet Union. But after a couple decades of that, they found that they were in a big crisis. They had orphans, millions of orphans walking the streets. And maybe already they'd broken up the family enough, and they figured that they didn't need to anymore. And then they changed it into a benign holiday where the idea is that the man brings the woman flowers. And so the people who came here from the Soviet Union or from the former Soviet Union, that is what they know. That is how they know International Women's Day as a day of bringing your wife flowers. But here in Israel, it's got the old sort of Leninist message, and the idea is to create this gender consciousness, sort of like they used to create class consciousness back when Marxism was more about class than about gender. And but the idea of breaking up the family was always a part of Marxism, and here in the kibbutzim.
Yes. Oh, did we lost Mr. Ronan?
I think we lost him.
I've still got him reading as connected with no issues on this end. Oh, there he goes. He will be back.
God damn it. No, because I wanted to. He anticipated my next question, which was essentially.
Oh, right. I think he's back.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yep.
All right, good deal.
Yep, you're back on live. Essentially, I said you anticipated my next question. You already answered to it. So I guess I'm gonna skip to the next one. I've read you're the founder of the group called the Familists, and I browsed a little bit through your website, and I found your speech that you gave last year at the Ariel University. And you said there's something very, very interesting. And I'm gonna quote from you here. Quote, if you listen to the gender studies staffers, you'd think that normal procreation either does not exist or it involves a stork flying in form of clouds with a baby, because in their eyes, the entire physical part of sexual relations between men and women is tainted with criminality from the get-go. End of quote. Right. I find this quote to be very truthful, and it resonates with what I hear from the European academia, the feminist sector of the European academia. Now, I guess my question to you, even though I might be a bit silly to ask it, but why do you think these genderists or feminists think this way? I mean, is it them importing claptrap from the wider feminist sector from Europe and North America, or is something else? Why do you think they think that way?
The entire idea behind genderism is to break up the bond between the man and the woman, to make the women supposedly independent in the sense that they're independent of the men, but then they become dependent as a group on the state and on the women's groups and on the benefits that the women's groups get for them through the state and through other means. So you have to confuse people. You have to somehow neutralize their sexuality. You have to neutralize their natural sexuality. You can do that by making it somehow. You can disconnect it from love, and then that's one way of neutralizing it, by going overboard, making society very hedonistic and sort of throwing sex into people's faces too much. That can also neutralize sex because you take away the love aspect of it, and another way of doing it is by portraying men as these evil predators, again, I find that one thing that they do, women have a need, I believe. They look for someone, an external force, to give them a feeling of security. I think that's genetic. And so what they do is they have to portray the man as the danger, and then they portray themselves as the protectors. And they are the ones who give the woman supposedly security, both financially and physically, because the men are these predators that are out there looking to hurt them, and these women's groups are there to defend them. And that creates a very strong dynamic, which is anti-sex. As I'm talking about it, I'm reminded of 1984. I don't know if you remember the
Junior Anti-Sex League.
Right, the Junior Anti-Sex League. See, so there's ways of doing this. You can be anti-sex by saying sex is bad, men are sexual predators, or you can also get rid of all sense of modesty and just have people walking around half naked or three-quarters naked and creating all this semi-prostitution culture where you have Madonna and all the other Madonna lookalikes that have come along since then, just, putting it all in your face, and then there's no difference anymore between the way a prostitute dresses and the way a decent girl dresses, and that's another way of messing up people's sexuality. And they have a lot of ways of doing this. So unfortunately, this is very sophisticated. And one thing that I found, one thing that I found is that, the thing that I think can really help us make a breakthrough is in that conference that you quoted from. The main speaker, the keynote speaker, was Professor Murray Strauss. I'm sure you've heard of him from.
Yes, we had him on the show.
So we brought him over. We paid for his plane ticket. He came over and he gave a 45-minute lecture, and he named names of specific Israeli researchers whom he actually works with. But he said, I hate to do this because I work with these guys, and at least about one of them, he said, this guy especially is like a friend, and he's a real nice guy. But I have to say that basically, I'm paraphrasing what he said. I have to say that these guys came up with this specific piece of research, which I'll tell you about in a second, because they were paid by the welfare ministry, and the welfare ministry wanted a certain result, and they gave them the result that they wanted. And this research was done in 2001 by a group of researchers from Haifa University, and they gave the welfare ministry a certain bogus number, supposedly 140,000 battered women in Israel. The women's groups had been saying for years and years that there's 200,000 battered women in Israel. Now, I noticed that with the women's groups, what they look for is round numbers, because they're not about research at all, of course. They're all about propaganda. So people get bored with numbers that are not round. They have to give them something that's easy to remember and easy to repeat. So they started saying at a certain point 200,000 battered women. And it's very important for them to drive home the message that, there's hundreds of thousands of battering men. Now, Israel's entire population is about 8 million, and at that time it was even less. And so you're talking about maybe 3 million men, 3 million women. So if you're talking about hundreds of thousands of batterers, then that pretty much covers a very large slice of the population. And the idea is, look, we have, maybe 1 out of 7 men is an actual batterer, then the other ones are mostly just meanies. Maybe there's like 1 out of 7 is a decent guy, but, that's the basic idea. And then they take the very few cases really of murders that happen here every year, and they inflate those very effectively in the media. They put that any time that a woman is murdered by a man, that becomes a front page headline. Often it's the top headline. It can trump very important military news. It can trump the nuclear bomb in Iran that's being developed. It can trump anything almost. And they get into very lurid descriptions of the scene of the crime and photographs of the body being taken away. Even though the research that I've seen, I saw a Harvard study that compared Israel to other countries, and Israel was actually in the last place in the world in terms of the rate of female homicides. But they're very clever in the way they manipulate the news. And then when you have these two things together, one is these homicides that people get banged into their heads every time they happen, and the other is these false numbers about hundreds of thousands of battered women. The idea is that you're living in some kind of war zone, and we are living in a war zone, but it's not that war. It's a completely different war. And it creates this terrible cognitive dissonance where this is doublethink. This is what Orwell talks about in when he uses the term doublethink. It's about you have the reality around you, in which, for instance, men, you live with men, you love men, you have sons, you have a husband, you have friends, you have a father, you have uncles, you have brothers, and you trust them, and you go out and with people, and you have a decent normal life on the one hand, and on the other hand you can still believe that men are all these batterers and these rapists, and somehow you can live with both of these thoughts at the same time, even though you know that they don't go together. That's doublethink. That's how Orwell describes doublethink, and that's exactly what you live with here. And
that's very depressing. And listening to you, I was just, throughout my head was always Italy, Italy, Italy. It's exactly the same recipe, but by the letter that has been applied in Italy. For instance, in Italy, now the whole media genuinely believes, I've talked to Italian journalists who genuinely believe that there is a pervasive problem with acid attacks of men towards women in Italy, when in reality, first of all, the problem isn't pervasive at all, and second of all, most of the victims are usually male, not female, in the very few cases when it actually happens, and third of all, Italy is one of the safest places to be a woman in Europe. So exactly what you said applies to at least in Italy, it's an identical recipe. Now, you talked about the ways to tackle it, and you proposed as one of the solutions to expand, I'm looking on your website now, to expand the gender studies, or the gender science, as you say it's called in there, to something called family science, that you say in your speech that it would at least be scientific. And for instance, you say the family science would find out scientifically if, for instance, maternal instinct actually exists, if chivalrous instinct actually exists, or is, or if it's socially constructed, which part of it is, and you also quote research published by Dr. Fiamengo. Now, that would be great, but I'm asking in all honesty, how realistic is this to happen? And if it is realistic to happen, what is the best way to approach to actually make that happen in Israel?
This is something that we are improvising our strategy as we go along. We can't really. It's a huge challenge. I find that it took me years and years just to really get a sense of what's happening around me. I had to really read a lot of stuff coming in from the United States, listen to Aaron Pitzy, listen to watch certain videos there's a video about the history of political correctness, which you may be familiar with.
Yes, I know.
Those things helped me understand the stuff that was going on around me, and a lot of thinking and a lot of just, talking to myself sometimes for hours, trying to understand, trying to undo this, the effect of this brainwashing, trying to get away with it, getting rid of my television set. I had a couple of years where I was trying to live in a religious setting to sort of get away from this brainwashing, and so this is in flux. I can't say that right now. I have a donor who will give money for this specific idea that you just mentioned, although I think it would be great if it could happen. And I'm looking for that person. At the same time, we already have a group of researchers like Professor Sarah Ben David from the Ariel University and other researchers. And social workers who are sort of rising up now against this dictatorship, and we have a group of lawyers also, especially female lawyers, who are both from the criminal field and from the family justice field, who are sick and tired of of this horror that keeps on going on in the courts. And we also met with the head of the chair of the Interior Committee in the Knesset. She's a Knesset member, also a woman from the Likud party. And so we hope to get something moving in the sense of some sort of initial inquiry in the parliament, on the parliamentary level. Obviously, we're going to be up against a lot of stiff opposition from the genderists within the Knesset.
Definitely.
Yeah, but there seems to be, one very positive development the past year or two is a Facebook group that has become very active. It's got several thousand divorced fathers in it, and for Israel that's huge. The tone there is very. It's a warlike, combative sort of tone, okay? Which is what we need. People are very desperate. People are sharing their suffering, and some of them are really, suicidal. But at the same time, they want to fight it, which is new. We used to. I never heard this voice before, and now there's thousands of them. There's another Facebook group, which is called the Anti-Feminist Group, which somebody else started, an intellectual. A university guy from Jerusalem, a lecturer in logic, and that has 500 people now, which is like, at first we thought if we reached 50 that would be huge, and we have 500. And Israel's a small country, so somehow something has got to give in the end. It's very difficult to break through on the media field, but we also had some good coverage from a national newspaper called Israel Hayom, and from a couple of other directions as well. There's a radio show that started covering the subject just recently and did a whole series of interviews with divorced men who'd been through the ringer of this family court and all these various means of torturing.
Discriminatory policies.
And so, I figure we can't give up. We can't give up to depression. We have to strengthen each other. It's hard as hell. It's really hard, and but like I said, it's a small country, and things are definitely moving. And I also hope. Sometimes I think it's going to be the change is going to come from the women themselves, who, this is like third generation already, or maybe even more than that of feminists, of women who grew up in the feminist environment, and I think more and more of them are really seeing through the whole thing. They understand how bad it is.
Yes, I guess you're probably right, because I've been thinking of Cardinal Smith, the leading expert on paternity fraud in the U.S., who also said that most of the support that his organization got came from women. Something like 80% of the people involved in the effort to tackle the issue of paternity fraud was from women. So I guess in that sense, you're probably right that eventually the change will come from women. Now, we're going to take a 2-minute music break, and then we'll be back to talk a bit more about the tone of the message and the way AVFM Hebrew can step into that, and other ways to tackle the issue. For the music break, let's listen to an Italian band, Ciervo, and the name of the song, Madness. All right, we're back. We've listened to Ciervo Madness. We're here with Mr. Gil Ronan and with Jonathan Roth and my co-host Jon Gunnarsson, which I hope he's back. And let's talk a bit more about madness since we're at here. Mr. Ronan, I'm reading from a website called csfisrael.org, and it has a huge list of issues in which the government essentially discriminates against men in particular in the family law, and not just that. And one of the points in that list is something that you might have more information about it. Quote from the website: the government appoints the family court judges who vouch in advance their preference to women and hatred of men. One such magistrate, Tamar Snunit Foer, a radical militant feminist, even declared declared that she wishes to be appointed as judge to influence from the inside of the sources of power and to push her agenda of promoting women at the expense of men. End of quote. Question: how much truth is in this, and how pervasive this kind of mentality is in the family court system?
Okay, the website is CCF, CCF Israel, that stands for the Coalition for Children and Families. I can't really say about the specific judge. I don't know about her. There's quite a few judges. I don't have any special information about her. But I have seen the crazy genderist judges. It's not a pretty sight. They are completely power crazy, and they have way too much power in their hands, and it makes them sort of drunk with power. And I had a judge who had actually, in my day in the court, there was a waiting area outside the courtroom, and there was a bulletin board there, and she hung up a whole list of jokes about men in the on the bulletin board. So you can imagine that if you're coming there with your wife and you read a whole list of jokes about men, and she even scribbled with her own handwriting on the corner, she wrote the joke corner, something like that. So you realize that you're not going to get a fair trial, and it's quite unpleasant. But what can we do? We have to. We're living in these dark times. It really stinks in that way. I wish we'd found a better time to be born, but I'm not sure. I mean, I guess if we weren't born now, then we would have been born during some other war. I mean, it's world history has not been such a great a great time most of the time, and so life gives you lemons. You have to make lemonade. I sort of hope. There's something that Aaron Pitsy talks about sometimes, and that's the difficulty of getting donors to donate to men's issues. For some reason, donors give to women, they give to children, but they don't give to men's issues, even if they know all about the problem. They realize how important it is. It's very difficult. There's she says it's like an emotional thing that men simply cannot find it in them to give to this kind of issue. And the big question is, when will we be able to break through to some sort of funding? Because obviously that'll open up a whole lot of possibilities. The women's groups here are just gobbling up the government budget. They are getting all sorts of benefits for divorced mothers to encourage divorce, and they have this TV campaign commercials that show a man and a woman together, husband and wife, and there's this sort of soft music, and then suddenly you see that the man has these boxing gloves on his hands, and it's all about how men are batterers, and that's one commercial that they produced, and it was produced by the government. And then another commercial encourages women to go after men for child support, and that has women dressed up in these army fatigues, encouraging them to go and fight for their child support. So these are very ugly messages, and let me say one thing: we're the Jewish state, and Jews are an ideological powerhouse, you could say. Everywhere there's an ideology, you find Jews in the forefront. I hope I'm not offending anybody when I say this. And especially, unfortunately, I must say, when it comes to neo-Marxism, you see a hell of a lot of Jews disproportionately represented there. So what I'm hoping is, now that we have our own country, our own state, and we are, so to speak, tasting from this poison ourselves, maybe we can come up with the antidote. You know what I mean? That's something that I sometimes think, could be a sort of tikkun, as we say in Hebrew, a way of fixing things, making things right, and that keeps me going sometimes. Otherwise, it's very ugly, because we're living in a state of war. We keep on finding ourselves in real war with the enemy. You have men getting killed on the battlefield, it's never women who get killed. It's always the men, and yet they come home and they can't even enjoy a single second of glory and gratitude. Immediately they find themselves being bashed over the head again with all this genderist propaganda. It's very deflating and it's very depressing and it's unfair.
It is. Allow me to interrupt you for a second. Ion, from anything Mr. Ronan said, is there anything that you've heard that we didn't get here in Europe? Because I found nothing that is particularly special.
Not really.
it has always been my contention since I started this show over a year ago that this really is a global disease. And more and more places where we opened up offices, whether it was Iran or Italy or Sweden, it always seems to be just different degrees of the same disease. I'm a poet today. Different degrees of the same disease. Maybe we should use that as a slogan. But essentially, it is the same disease, and it is particularly insidious. And as to what Mr. Ronan said, that the donors usually will round up to donate for children, would round up to donate for women, but they would never round up to donate for something focused a little bit more on men. Now, Dr. Warren Farrell talk about that men are essentially the disposable sex, so that probably is a way. Other researchers have used the word gynocentrism to describe this condition. But whether we call it gynocentrism, whether we call it genderism, whether we call it whatever ism you want on the planet, the fact of the matter is that it is true. Now, despite this aspect, Mr. Ronan pointed out the positive signs in his country as to several groups that have begun to develop what we call here an FTASU mentality. And in this regard, I'm asking first, we here on AVFM, we also adopt a very confrontational attitude. We do. And this is why I'm asking, how do you think AVFM Hebrew can help on this? Because as far as I'm concerned, AVFM Hebrew could and should be a frontal voice, at least as it pertains to broadcasting the message into the wider culture. It worked tremendously well in the US. It worked tremendously well in Sweden. Could it work in Israel as well via AVFM Hebrew? And this is a question both from Mr. Ronan and Jonathan.
If I can go first, Jonathan, definitely this can have a great effect. I'll tell you why. In Israel, Israel started out as a very, very poor country 60, 70 years ago. And people always used to hear about stuff going on in America, Hollywood, all these tremendous, all these appliances, all these new ideologies. Everything always came from America, and people have also Israel is a sort of a very close ally of the U.S. and depends on it to a very large extent. So there's a huge amount of adoration and adulation of the United States. And to a certain extent, of all European culture. I mean, Israelis prefer, by and large, to see themselves as a part of Europe than as a part of the Middle East. A lot of them do, anyhow. And what I'm saying is, a lot of Israelis, most Israeli men who get messed up by the system think that this is the fault of Judaism somehow, because we have these religious laws. For instance, in Israel, it's only the man who pays child support. It's 100%. 100% of the child support falls on the man's shoulders, and that is taken from Jewish law, but it's Jewish law that's taken out of context, because Jewish law also gave men the entire inheritance, for instance. It gave them a lot of advantages, and so it also saddled them with responsibility, but the genderists managed to get rid of all the privileges and only keep the responsibilities. And the same goes with this tender years clause, which still has not been gotten rid of here in Israel, which gives women basically automatic custody of the children, which is again, it happens all over the world, but it's not as blatant, I think. And in Israel, that's a law that is somehow taken from Jewish religion, but again, it's taken out of context. So people think it's all the rabbi's fault somehow. It's all the Jewish law's fault. And then when they find out that this stuff is going on all over the world, it's a complete shock to them. So if you take both of these factors, once people start to understand, especially the more intellectual people, whether in academia or outside of academia, the people who want to read up and research and understand the depth of things, once they figure out it's a worldwide phenomenon, their whole outlook will change. And then I see this happening in this group called the Anti-Feminist Group on Facebook. I see how we keep on importing material from the U.S. and from Europe, and people are amazed to see that the same things that are going on in Israel are also going on abroad, and it does give them encouragement, especially when they see that there's a change, because they figure, okay, the same way feminism came here from America, why can't the same happen with anti-feminism? And the more they hear about things changing in the U.S., for instance, the fact that that feminists now all over the United States know what an MRA is or what the MRM is, something that didn't exist just a few years ago, obviously that's a sort of a sea change. So, yeah, definitely, people, the more they see that this is a worldwide thing and not just something that's happening in our little corner of the Middle East, the more they will be encouraged to believe that there can also be a change. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's the role of AVFM, probably the primary role in Israel.
Okay. Jonathan?
I believe we don't really have a choice in this sense. They're very well funded, the feminist organizations, and if we just sanction ourselves off as a person-to-person basis or a movement-to-movement basis or a country-to-country basis, while they go to the UN and go globally, we're just going to be left behind, and basically we will do nothing if we don't find some form of way of being cohesive. MRAs all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah, that's precisely why these kinds of offices, all of them connected to a certain extent with AVFM, tend to work a little bit better. For instance, in Sweden, just a few months after our office in there has been opened, the whole feminist establishment started, even some of the feminists stopped talking to each other because they were thinking, oh my God, AVFM is going to send people and infiltrate in our little private groups and then expose us for what we say when we think that nobody is watching. And they literally asserted, some of them, and some of them even politicians, feminist politicians, that they're essentially afraid of an AVFM conspiracy. And, like we say here in Romania, what you fear most, that's exactly the thing that you won't get away from. Now it's exactly that what is happening. Just these days they're publishing on AVFM Sweden an entire, a series of exposés of what feminists are saying when they think nobody is looking. And then they're scared. They're entirely scared. And these kinds of things have a huge impact on a cultural level. And I would wager that the same can be true in Israel, because Sweden is also a small country, 10 million inhabitants. So if it worked in there, why shouldn't it work in Israel? And also the thing that you mentioned, Mr. Ronan, about the fact that some privileges, the fact that all privileges were stripped away from the old traditional law, and the responsibilities were kept and things of that nature. This is again also a worldwide phenomenon. In the US, for instance, there were the old coverture laws, which essentially worked pretty much like the way you described the Jewish law used to work. And the new coverture laws essentially are stripped from the privileges portion, but the responsibilities portion of the same coverture law is still in place today in several states of the United States. The same is true in Europe. For instance, in my own country, a portion of the old civil code that was adopted first time in the 1850s is still in place today, but only the portion that guarantees the responsibilities for the husband. The portion that guarantees the privileges, of course, was stripped away in the 40s when communists invaded. So, I mean, and now they finally got it a little bit more equalized than it used to be in the 2010, thanks to certain fathers' rights activists. But then again, the change will take time, and yeah, in that respect, I guess me and James, we always say we're here for the long run. I mean, this kind of thing will not be fixed overnight, but it has to start from somewhere.
Right. Yeah, it's very easy to despair, and it's very important to keep on going and to just take a deep breath. And like you said, say that we're in this for the long haul. We're going to be successful. It's just a matter of time, and try to do it with style. Try to do it with a smile on our face, and see this as a chance for a new beginning. I guess we have to be inventive at this point, and we have to be creative, and we have to find. I think sometimes that we will wind up. You know how communism was and is a terrible, genocidal, dictatorial ideology, but arguably there's a lot of things that we accept now as part of our life in a modern society would not have been here were it not for some kind of socialist movement. I'm talking about workers' rights, the right to have health insurance. At least here in Israel, we have pretty good health insurance. The right to have a day off at least every week, not to work crazy hours or to get overtime, the right to unionize. I guess some people might disagree with me, but I think a lot of these things we would find hard to live without. So in a sense, what happened was, at least here in Israel, is that communism never took hold here, but certain socialist, watered-down socialist ideas did take hold. So I'm thinking maybe with feminism we'll see the same kind of process where we won't totally get rid of these women's groups, but maybe they'll just become more sane. They won't be as combative. They won't be revolutionary. They won't be as subversive. They won't be so full of hatred. And they will be there to address real problems that women face, and maybe we do need some of what they constructed. Maybe should remain in place. Maybe it's not. It's like a pendulum, that has to find a sort of middle ground. And hopefully, the new generation of girls and women who have seen this, have seen their mothers kick their fathers out of their home, and have seen how all these lies are proved to be lies after a few years of in which they believe that they're the truth. And maybe these women, like I said before, will help us make this change. But obviously, it's the men who have to be tough here. And being a man is a leader, so we have to be leaders here. We have to provide the ideology, and we have to work with these women and support them, the positive women, and find some sort of way to communicate, stand our ground, be tough on the one hand, but communicate also, and not lose our human touch.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you said that some people might disagree with you. I disagree with some of the issues, but we only have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to keep that disagreement to myself until a further meeting. Final words, Jonathan. Final words, Mr. Gunnarsson. Which one of you wants to go first?
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Well, I think this is a very good beginning, and we can always improve more and more on the site, and hope for the best.
Okay, Mr. Gunnarsson?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting. I think it's, as you said, it's very important to get this message into more and more countries, and to show people that their problems are not just local ones, but in fact global ones. So I think this is a really good step in the right direction, and I'm glad that we have this AVFM in Hebrew as well.
Okay, Okay, we only have 2 minutes left, so we're gonna stop the show here. Mr. Ronan, thanks a lot for coming to the Voice of Europe. Looking forward to having you again on the show someday in the future. Maybe we'll have a little bit more time to discuss. I'm pretty sure that we can have an argument on the air that would be quite fruitful for our audience. Jonathan, thanks a lot for coming to the show, and good luck with the management of AVFM Hebrew. As always, you always have me to contact when you're stuck into something that you can't figure out yourself. And with that being said, thanks a lot, Jon, for being with me as usual. Take the red pill.
This has been a production of A Voice for Man. Lucian Wilson and his guests, thank you for listening to The Voice of Europe. A Voice for Man radio is not corporate media and everything runs on donations. So please consider visiting avoiceforman.com and make a donation. We would also like to thank the artists De Primatera, Mbezna, Cristian Buica, the Iranian band Arsames, the DDG Project, and all the other artists that offered us their songs to use under Creative Commons license. Special thanks go to www.pacdv.com/sounds for putting the sounds of the jingles at our disposal. We would also want to remind the listeners to take the red pill. Thank you for listening to us and have a great evening. Ați ascultat Vocea Europei.